Let's talk about other piano trios and the sort of work that you do. There have been earlier Canadian piano trios, including several with that title, Canadian Piano Trio. The great Winnipeg cellist Sarah Nelsover was in 2 trios with that name. An even earlier trio was the Hamburg Trio, founded as early as 1905, with the 3 Hamburg brothers and various family members thereafter. These trios and later trios, thinking of trios like Moshe Hammer's 1/3 9th in his Calgary days, Marta Hedes Trio, Trio Victoria, the Brandon Trio, and lots of trios who are around today. They tend to specialize just in the classical repertoire, the Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, few romantics, and a few from more recent times, at least from the last century. But with the Gryphon Trio, with performance at the center and the very driving force of the members' various activities, you have a wider repertoire that reaches much further and covers a much broader base. Can you sort of summarize this in a sort of mission statement, what the Gryphon Trio is about? Well, and then we'll go on to talk about the different areas.
Actually, sort of in an interesting way. I mean, it comes back to what must have been floating around in our subconscious when we were choosing names and decided to favor the Gryphon. You know, we didn't want to choose a name that limited us in any way or identified us too closely with any particular style or classical style or period, and chose a Gryphon, which was a mythological creature, combination of lion eagle, which was reputed to have been the guardian of treasures, but which was interesting. So you could say that in a sense, in being interpreters of the great masters' music, the music that's been brought down to us over the generations. In a sense, we're doing that there, but it's all that the Gryphons are also a combination of what is it?
Psychic energy and cosmic force, or something. Like somebody did a lot more research than we did.
Yeah.
This is getting close to Harry Potter, isn't it?
There you go.
Gryffindor.
Yeah, Harry Potter #7. That'll be a Gryphon Trio soundtrack. But no, I mean, and just so that somehow that being kind of a new and there's a freedom that came with that I think that allowed us to really explore and push the boundaries, look for the boundaries, discover where. I mean, are there boundaries? I mean, whose boundaries are there in terms of what it is that a chamber group such as ours needs to do, what it is that our audiences are interested in our doing? Are there limitations there? Can we take that further? Can we present things that both challenge us, that take us further, but also, cause your ears and brains to resonate in ways that perhaps you weren't expecting? You know, that's always interesting. I mean, and working with contemporary composers is it's never the same twice. You're dealing with individuals that are the products of their environments, and we know how different that can be, and they're all responding to, even if they all have studied, even if 3 composers have studied with Christos Hatsis, not one of them will really write anything that's at all similar, I mean, and that's both an indication of a good teacher as well as it is an indication of the fact that these artists are responding differently to the environment that they're coming from, and that's very, very stimulating.
One of the more cutting-edge things you've done, or where you've really pushed the envelope of the traditional concert, is in the multimedia work that you've done, and you've got the Color for the End of Time, which you did here a couple of years ago with the Messiaen piece, another one with Chan Kanin, West Coast piece, and the Christos Hatsis, Constantinople, which you've toured internationally. What have you discovered through this about how far you can go with multimedia?
Well, we've discovered that you can go as far as you want as long as it doesn't take 3 or 4 days to set the whole thing up in the theater. So, and that's one of the challenges with Constantinople. It's really quite enormous. And actually, we're in the process. There's still a lot of interest in presenting that piece in various festivals internationally. But one of the things we're trying to revisit is the whole lighting component, which takes a long time to set up. When you're working in multimedia and you have 3, or in our case, in the case of Constantinople, 5 musicians on stage that we know the audience wants to see, so there has to be some light for those people, but yet you have lots of projections surrounding you which create an ever-changing landscape. Well, in order for projections to work well, ideally, you'd have no lights on. So you have this challenge, this conflict between the 2 elements, and it's because of that you then need to have lots of very specific lights. Instead of turning one huge light bulb on to light the whole stage, you have to have 100 tiny ones that light little places, and you have to stand exactly there, otherwise your face is half missing. But, so, I mean, that's a very practical thing. The other thing is that people, the Messiaen Color for the End of Time project, which we finally, we performed it a number of times this year with Jim in different places around Canada, and it changed every time, and we finally got it to a place in Kelowna, BC, that I think we all felt it was really, it had come to a place that it was really something we were proud of, and that really did the job. And the big thing there is that if you have any sort of visual, it will immediately pull away from the music, and that's the rule for us. The music is the number one, our number one cause, and if any other component starts to really overshadow that. I mean, unless we decide that, unless there's a project, one day that we decide is just about, the visual component and we're somehow involved in it. But I mean, if it's something like the Messiaen, you have to, which is just such a sacred work. I mean, to mess around with it in the way we did was bound to be, a walk through a minefield, and it was, but we survived, and we learned a great deal, and it's quite beautiful. But so that's the challenge. We're all citizens of a very visual age, and as soon as there's anything anywhere that's moving, our eyes and our brains just go straight to that. And if you can't just hope that people will stick to the music. At the very least, if you don't get it right, people will say, but it was so hard to listen to the music because those visuals were distracting.
But when they work, they can be truly wonderful.
Yeah.